Welcome to the Podcast Rodeo Show. I'm your host, Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com. If you're new to the show, this is where we grab a random podcast and see how long I can hang on. Then I give you an honest first impression. And today we're going to be listening to Erotic Awakenings. Their website is, you guessed it, eroticawakening.com. Excuse me, I misspoke. It's Erotic Awakening. No S there. Erotic Awakening, eroticawakening.com. And their description from my good friends in Apple Podcasts says, welcome to Erotic Awakening, an informative and entertaining exploration of all things erotic, from sacred sexuality to fetishes, power exchange, and polyamory, BDSM to erotic spirituality, non-standard relationships, I love that phrase, to alternative love styles, as well as simply fun kink. And so we're going to be listening to, I believe it was episode 500 and something, 560, which is Jealousy Survival Guide. And we're going to do that right after this.
The following is an opinion, and only an opinion. These are actual, honest first impressions. If you don't like the opinion, feel free to never listen again.
All right, here we go. I'm listening on my phone, and it goes a little something like this.
This week on Erotic Awakening, Jealousy Survival Guide, Sex at Home, and Hiking.
Welcome to Erotic Awakening, an exploration of all things erotic. If you are offended by adult topics or prohibited by law, we recommend you stop listening right now.
The Erotic Awakening podcast, as well as workshops by Dan and Dawn, are offered free of charge to our community.
Because of the expenses involved, we are grateful to those that support us through Patreon and donations.
Awesome people like Shelly.
Indeed.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Dan.
Today on the podcast, we are going to be joined by the wonderful Kitty Chambliss on talk about jealousy and how to survive it.
Fabulous.
But, well, actually, there's no but.
There's no but.
There's not a ton else to talk about.
Which is surprising. There would be a ton to talk about if you were okay with me putting all the dates of all the things we have to do, which I tried to do a couple of weeks ago, and then we went on and on and on. So I've only got a couple of dates. But
no, I know, but it was the
lots
podcast
of stuff going on.
It was the podcast of. It was a calendar. It was you reading a calendar. It's 30 minutes of calendar.
But I have found a new passion with the Zoom calls, so that is really feeding me.
And people are digging.
I'm not sure what you're talking about here. It sounds like all of a sudden you went into a meeting about the show. We're talking calendars. We're not sure what we're talking about. You started off really focused, and now I'm like, I feel like I walked into the middle of a meeting.
And people are digging it, and I cannot deny that.
It's sacred sexuality, and the ones I'm doing on my own are sacred sexuality and energy work and all that type of stuff I used to do in person with my spiritual group and with the FET community, and now I'm putting it online, and it's going very well.
Well, people who are listening, you will get a chance to hear about that. I can't stop her. Power exchange be damned.
No, but you can edit that out.
There's some things you just can't. Well, actually, I could. But
you could.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be worth it. And we also have to talk about sex and kink while your roommates are at home. But before we get there, let's go ahead and bring in Kitty. Been on the podcast before, friend of the podcast, author of the Jealousy Survival Guide, and all kinds of cool stuff. Thanks for being on the podcast, Kitty.
Thank you for having me. I'm super happy to be here and get to have a great conversation with both of you again.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not going to hold it against them that Kitty's audio is not great, but it's the guest. What are you going to do?
Yay.
So one of the fun things that we are always asked about is, I think this whole polyamory thing sounds great, but I can't do polyamory because I'm jealous.
Or people find out that we're polyamorous, and then they're like, oh, so I guess you don't have an issue with jealousy. That's the other end of the spectrum.
So is that the reality of it? Has jealousy been conquered? Is your book the answer to all jealousy and no one has to be jealous again?
I would say the way I like to describe it is jealousy just gets such a bad rap, right? And it's really just another emotion. Like, anger is an emotion, and we can take anger management classes. Well, we can also just learn to manage the emotion of jealousy. Jealousy can be complex, but that doesn't mean that we can't get skills skills in order to handle it. So to me, it's just a matter of learning the right skills, the right tools, and also accepting it and embracing it in terms of when we try and run away from our feelings or suppress them, they just keep popping up like beach balls that we try to push down in a pool, right?
Right.
They keep popping back up again. So I really advocate just taking it head on and accepting that emotion, leaning into it, and learning how to dance with it, so to speak. So that's definitely one of the approaches that I take. And also, there can be a lot of shame in the open relationship and polyamorous community just around even experiencing jealousy. Like, oh, I must not be polyamorous enough if I feel jealousy. But that's just really a myth. It's simply an emotion. And some people can feel it more than other people. For example, my husband just very innately doesn't seem to feel very much jealousy, but I have over the years, which is partly why I did all this research and wrote this book so that I could help my fellow man and woman and person to get to a better place with it.
And personally, I'm glad to hear that, right? The book that's written from the perspective of somebody, right? I wouldn't read a book about diabetes, or what it's like to live with diabetes by somebody who doesn't have diabetes, right? So I want to read a book about jealousy and how to deal with jealousy, it's valuable to read it by someone who's dealt with some jealousy in their life.
Yeah, living with the experience instead of the theory.
Exactly.
Because everybody's got theory. You've got your armchair theorist. So how, I just want to throw this out there. I'm pretty sure I already know the answer. So how valuable is it for people on groups to be telling other people that express that they're being jealous that they are not actually polyamorous if they are jealous? I get that.
All right, so a couple things I liked about this show. The intro, you just got to do some editing. And what always gets me is when a show goes off the rail at the beginning of the show, within the first 2 minutes, just hit stop and go back again and fix it. So I don't know what was going on with the calendar, and I can't stop her from doing it. Yeah, you can. You go, don't do that. But I do like the fact that you jumped right into the topic, the guest. What are you going to do? I still say it is your fault for letting people on, but her audio, about a 7, could have been better, but it could have been worse. I could understand her. That was fine. There's one little thing, and I'm going to go back to the very beginning of the show, and it doesn't bother me. In fact, I just did one, and that is you have at times, at least my initial, and this is where I listen through the ears of a podcaster, you have a fair amount of mouth noise. Let me play this for you again. Hear it? You didn't even say anything yet, and I hear you going, and the only reason I bring that up, there are people that almost like a phobia, like freak out when they hear that noise.
This week on Erotic Awakening, Jealousy Survival Guide, Sex at Home, and Hiking.
Welcome to Erotic Awakening.
So I heard more. So again, I'm listening through the ears of that. And what's interesting is the first time I listened to that, I thought you guys spoke too fast. And now that I'm kind of used to your cadence, I was like, okay, I understood it. But the first time I heard that intro, I was like, wait, what are we talking about? Because you're like, we're talking about, this and whips and chains and blah, 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 whatever it is. And I was like, wait, what was that? So the second time I heard it, I'm a little more used to your energy. But the first time I heard that, I was like, wait, hold on, wait, what? So that was an interesting thing, because that was my original thing. The mouth noise again. But the biggest thing I heard here that needs fixed is whatever that weird thing was that you guys did with the calendar, and here's what I'm up to, and that was that take that out, and this would have been a great. I also think the music's a little loud on your intro.
Welcome to Erotic Awakening, an exploration of all things erotic. If you are offended by adult topics or prohibited by law...
Maybe not. I just remember, again, that first time I heard your intro, I was really straining to understand what was being said, and so maybe not. So all in all, hence the horse whinny, not a bad opening, not a bad first impression. I like the fact that you let people know that, hey, if this is going to offend you, tune out now. So I really do appreciate the heads up on that for anybody that is going to get offended. And I guess with a name like Erotic Awakening, I like the fact that you still give the disclaimer, because some people are like, well, duh, it's called Erotic Awakening. Again, the website eroticawakening.com if you want to check out more of their show. They've got all sorts of books and kink starter cards, presentations, events, and all sorts of fun stuff. Now, if you would like to have your show right here on the Podcast Rodeo Show, simply go out to, you guessed it, podcastrodeoshow.com, click on the Get Reviewed button, and you will see where there are multiple options there. So thanks so much for tuning in. Again, I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com. Thanks for joining me on my mission to rid the world of boring podcasts.